Thank you for joining us again and for being here. Let me just kick off looking back a little bit. So during your presidency, you stabilized the economy, you helped deal with the tragic tsunami, you reached peace in Aceh, and then oversaw a harmonious transition to a newly elected leader. Indonesia, though, once again finds itself at a pivotal moment with regards to a transition of power. So I'm curious, what advice do you have for the incoming President Prabowo Subianto?
Well, transition is really important. When I was elected to be the President of Indonesia through the first directly elections, I was not fortunate to have a good transition. The political circumstances was not easy at that time, and the Indonesian Election Commission announced officially of my status as a president-elect just about 3 weeks before my inaugurations. But now, Mr. Prabowo has enough time to prepare everything. And I know the relationship between Prabowo and President Jokowi is good. I learned that there are a lot of things that Mr. Prabowo is preparing now for a better future. I know that Mr. Prabowo knows well that Indonesia has tremendous opportunities, but at the same time also face many challenges. And with that, I believe that Prabowo will prepare everything when it comes to policy, to solution that is needed by the Indonesian people. So I watch the transition is good, it's working well, and hopefully after assuming his presidency, the next government will do many things that the people really expect to be done by the new government.
I also wanted to ask a question around democracy, because you of course were the product of Indonesia's first direct presidential election in 2004. It's now been more than a quarter century since that country's democratic transition. And Indonesia has fallen in the corruption rankings, and just recently we saw some quite big protests over the perceived attempt by President Widodo to help his younger son compete in regional elections. So I'm also curious, how concerned are you about the state of Indonesia's democracy now?
Well, if we are talking democracy, we should talk about nice things and bad things of democracy. I love democracy myself, but remember, there are also challenges in safeguarding democracy, and I fully agree with has been said by my good friend Barack Obama. In order democracy to fulfill, we have to fight for. So I watched the ongoing discussion, conversation on our democracy. I think it's good for all of us to conduct evaluation. What is going right and what is going wrong in our democracy? And it is common in the democratic nation. So Prabowo, in my view, has also followed very closely on the ongoing situation. So my answer will be, it's a good thing to be learned by all of us, what is going on right now. And one thing that we have to remember, the people are hoping that this country, this government, the leaders can really safeguard and uphold our democracy. Of course, sometimes it's complex, it's challenging, but I do believe that as a young democracy, after Indonesia was hit by the crisis back in 1998, our journey is not over. We continue to nurturing and making our democracy more relevant to the hope and the aspirations of the Indonesian people.
You mentioned just now that the relationship between President Widodo and the incoming president is good. There are some concerns, though, that the overwhelmingly popular Widodo could haunt his successor. I mean, his son is going to be vice president, and last month's events indicate that he wants to retain some influence. So do you expect him to intervene in politics, or like you step back and let his successor run things?
Could you repeat against your point in these questions?
I mean, do you expect President Widodo to let the incoming President Prabowo run things as he sees fit, or do you feel that he will be interventionist?
Well, actually, I have to refrain from making unnecessary comment in this point of time. I believe in the meaning of political correctness. So I'm hoping that I could say anything properly without creating unnecessary problems. So if you could limit my observation to ongoing political what is snotrum oils, is political dynamics, I will really appreciate it.
Okay. Well, just indulge me, if you will. I did just want to ask a question around foreign policy. And I wanted to ask, do you think a Prabowo presidency, well, how do you think, I suppose, a Prabowo presidency will manage the United States-China rivalry? Do you think that Jakarta should do more to call out China's maritime aggression in the South China Sea?
One thing that I am quite sure, Mr. Prabowo, in my view, will be a foreign policy president. He knows well about geopolitics, about the dynamic of international peace and security, the situation in the region, in East Asia, in Southeast Asia, and many other places. So Prabowo will be part of the solution in ensuring that all countries in Asia, for example, can work together in maintaining peace, stability, and order. Of course, now many people say that geopolitics in these regions is not really good. There is standoff between powers in the region. The problems over China and Taiwan relations, dispute over territory in South China Sea, the tension in Korean Peninsula, but Indonesia and next Mr. Prabowo will be able to position Indonesia correctly and also will play positive roles within the ASEAN or within the Asia Pacific community on our clear stance that, if I may say, I will give you an example about the relations between China and the US. Indonesia thinks both countries, the US and China, have a room to play positive roles in the regions. We need China, we need the US for stimulating our regional economic growth, for example. Regardless, the two countries have different position. Also, there is a rivalry between the two, but I think they can work together for their own benefit as well, in economy, in combating climate change, in reducing poverty in the region, etc., etc. And if there is no way out over the South China dispute, for instance, Indonesia can appeal, ASEAN can appeal, that everybody must go to the negotiating table, respecting the international law and avoiding military mights to solve the problems. So that kind of thing that Indonesia must say And even though Indonesia is a developing country, it's an emerging market, but we are the biggest country in ASEAN. We are also a member of the G20. It means Indonesia is a regional power and to a certain degree global player. So we have to have a say and suggestion how to deal with the regional problem properly, wisely, and correctly.
Prabowo's team has also floated this idea of an advisory council, which would consist of Indonesia's past living leaders, yourself, Joko Widodo, Megawati Sukarno Putri, and it would meet regularly and it would discuss national strategic issues. But you've all got very strong personalities, so I'm curious in what you think. Is a council like that really feasible?
Well, speaking of the so-called President's Club, or a group of former president to be an advisor to President Prabowo, my view is we praise President-elect Prabowo for his ideas and intentions to involve all former leaders on the international interests and for the sake of our unity. It is a good idea when I have to thank to Mr. Prabowo. When our relations are good with Pak Prabowo, and we are also supporting Pak Prabowo in order to succeed in his mission to lead Indonesia in the next few years, then I think the political atmosphere in this nation will be good. But in my own opinion, it's not necessarily to form a kind of president club that is really structured and the tax and obligation will be stated in the law. I think that things will be counterproductive in my view, because our leader is Mr. Prabowo. All must support, must give chance to him to lead this country after the elections. And maintaining personal relation, of course, will be good, because at least the people of Indonesia want to see that the relation between the leader and former leaders are good, to be a good example for everybody. So this is my comment on that. Good idea, and I am more than willing to sometime have a talk with Mr. Prabowo on the important matters of this country.
Makes sense, but perhaps not necessarily something as structured as an advisory council. Yeah.
That's my view.
Yeah. I also wanted to talk a little bit about infrastructure, because, of course, in an archipelago as wide and as big as Indonesia, this is something that is crucial. And some of the reviews of your presidency in 2014 highlighted some underachievements there, including a failure to get some of the bigger infrastructure projects done. So I'm curious, what, in your view, is most crucial to fix in terms of infrastructure now, today? Where should the focus be?
Well, firstly, I have to thank President Jokowi for scaling up infrastructure buildings during his tenure in office. It well recorded by Indonesian history that President Jokowi built large infrastructure project, mainly a toll road system. And of course it's good for our economy, good for our people as well. And I do believe that President Jokowi can build large infrastructures for 10 years, because I remember after leaving my office, our economy was quite strong, high growth, high GDP, high per capita income. The poverty is down, the unemployment down, and debt to GDP ratio is also down, like has been said by Mr. Yudi. So Pak Jokowi has really had wider room to continue building infrastructure. But after that, my view is that President Prabowo must focus on building other economic infrastructure besides building a toll road system. For example, this country needs more electricity or power generations. Also, the next government can build more seaport, airport, or telecommunication, railway, because it is strongly needed when our economy is growing up to 6 or even 7% in the years to come. But also, we have also to building other infrastructure such as technology, also education and healthcare. So my point is, infrastructure is very important, but building human capital is also important. We have to combine those two things in order our economy will continue to grow higher and stronger.
I was also going to say, I mean, building electric vehicle charging infrastructure is also, I imagine you would think, very paramount for Indonesia. I mean, the penetration of EVs in Indonesia is currently quite low, and that infrastructure build-out needs to happen before consumers will make the switch. Perhaps that's a nice segue into another question I wanted to ask you about climate change. You gave a speech back in 2009 at the Harvard University Institute of Politics, and in it you outlined 9 imperatives for harmony among civilizations. And one of those was the importance of having a global conscience. And you posited back then that perhaps climate change would usher in a new global conscience. 15 years on from that, how do you feel that's going?
Globally, there is good news and bad news if we are talking about climate change. We have met in various countries to discuss how should we collaborate and work together in combating climate change more effectively. The problem is not only the relation between government, not only the fulfillment of what we have agreed before, such as the obligation stated in the Paris Climate Agreement, but back home, I think all stakeholders must be on board. Government must explain quite clearly to everybody, not only the government officials, central down to the regional ones, but also to private sectors, to educators, to scientists, to environmental experts, but also the people on the ground. Unless everybody really understand and believe that to save our future generation, to save our future Earth, is by doing effective things to combat the rise of climate change, global warming. So this is the real change, and in my view, looking forward, realizing that not all targets are achieved by the global community, by all of us, then each country, each leader must do their own to ensure that domestically there is a progress in combating climate change. And I have a good conversation with President Prabowo, and I suggest to him that the Ministry of Environment to be revived to be a standalone ministry. Now, the environmental affair is a part of the Ministry of Forestry, and we have to separate it again, because the Ministry of Environment must be really focusing on their own function and job. And of course, many things that to be done by the government. But once again, let's involve the society, let's involve the private sectors, everybody.
What was his reaction to that suggestion? What was his reaction? Was he receptive to that?
Mr. Prabowo was in line with my thought, and he promised to also put Ministry of Environment as an independent, as a standalone ministry.
Wonderful, that's great to hear. Just finally, you've also described the 21st century as one of maybe the most progressive ever known. And really, when you think about the extent of the technology development that we've had just in the last 10 years, it's astounding. You know, everyone now has a mobile phone. AI is probably developing concepts and technologies that we haven't even thought of yet. But when you said that back in 2009, US politics, at least, were in a very different place. President Barack Obama had recently come to power, and I guess I feel there was this sense of hopefulness that some would say is now lacking. You were urging the US to inundate the world with its soft power to promote democracy and harmony. What would your views be now, particularly against the backdrop of, some would say, a divided and particularly fractious America?
Ada bisa membantu saya poin dari itunya.
Fragmentasi politik di Amerika, pandangan Bapak gimana?
Are you asking me about the?
I'm just wondering, you know,
political fragmentation
yes,
in the U.S.
In the U.S., yes, correct.
Between Democratic and Republican.
Correct.
Between Trump and Kamala Harris.
Yes.
Well, of course, this is my view, my personal view. U.S. is an important country in the world. They can play great roles in our world to deal with so many global challenges. So together with other big countries, China, Europe, and others, I think the U.S. must play significant, effective, and relevant roles that will benefit to all of us. I don't know who will be leading USA after November the 6th. Kamala Harris or President Trump again. But the world needs certainty from the US, needs a trust that the US will be part of the solution together with other countries. So even though hard to predict who will be leading the US again next year and for years to come, but at least we are hoping that the US can continue playing positive roles for the people all over the world. Remember, Uncle Ben says in the Spider-Man, with great power comes great responsibility. So it is true for the U.S. The U.S. must be part of the solution, and they can do that. That's my hope. And the rest, only God knows who will be leader of the U.S. Depolarization is not good for the U.S. as a big country, as one of the global leader. So, well, as a friend of the U.S., we are hoping once again the election will be done smoothly. There will be a new government of the U.S. that can part of our endeavor in solving so many global challenges.
Well, look, on that note, thank you very, very much for your time. Thank you. Please join. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay,